When deluxe ocean liners first came on the horizon, their main function was to cross the Atlantic. Well, things have changed since then. Today, as soon as you've boarded the ship, you've arrived. Hi, I'm Jake de Boer and this is the Travel Magazine. We're going to find out exactly what is involved in a cruise vacation. To do that, we board Holland America's MS New Amsterdam for a 7-day Alaskan cruise. Most people are used to having a resort hotel as their destination for a holiday. But this hotel is different. It's part of the trip. After a traditional send-off, we're on the way, heading north through the Strait of Georgia. The first day at sea is spent getting used to the fact that your hotel is traveling with you on your vacation. And of course, taking in the incredible scenery.
Well, one of the main aspects I think that's very unique about this cruise to Alaska is the fact that the scenery is just fantastic throughout most of the trip, with mountains and snow-capped peaks and forest areas and waterfalls, and it's really gorgeous. And in addition to that, you have a great opportunity to see a lot of wildlife. You see humpback whales, we see several species of birds, of course, porpoise, sheep, killer whales, orcas, we have that availability as well. And we see them quite frequently, not just in one specific spot or location, but throughout most of the cruise we have a great opportunity to see these types of wildlife species. And it's a great chance to learn about one of these great, vast wilderness areas that we have left on the North American continent.
Mr. and Mrs. Klein, 602.
One way to meet your fellow passengers is during the compulsory lifeboat drill. On a cruise like this, what kind of activities are there?
We have a very extensive program. It's quite a varied program. We like to give people things to do on the inside of the ship, different types of lectures, and bingo and horse racing, of course, is very popular. But on the outside, we have many things taking place as well. We still have many sporting activities such as tennis and volleyball and shuffleboard. We offer trap shooting several times during the course of the cruise as well, where people get a chance to test their skill on the aft Lido deck here. And it's run, of course, by our security officer. But a lot of the sporting type of activities that you normally associate with any cruise are done up here as well. And there are many days when the sun is shining so brightly, you'll see people out in the swimming pools. The pools, of course, are heated here on the Alaskan cruise, but many times you'll see people actually in the pool or lying out in bikinis, and it's quite a strange sight to see somebody in a bikini lying in front of Marjorie Glacier in Glacier Bay. It makes for quite an interesting picture souvenir to take home with you.
Early on in the cruise, passengers find out what else the New Amsterdam is famous for. Excellent cuisine.
I'd like to keep our nickname, the Spotless Fleet. We still have the Dutch image, but is partly Indonesian, Filipino also. We serve a Dutch dinner, but we also serve an Indonesian luncheon. So we work all nicely together on board the ship.
When you have approximately 1,200 passengers on board of a ship, how many eggs, chickens, etc. you would serve in 1 week?
Chickens is almost 4,000 pounds. Beef is around the 6,000 pounds. The eggs is 32,500 pieces, 24 pounds of caviar, 18,000 pounds of fresh fish then, and 17,000 pounds of fresh vegetables.
I just gave the smile right this way. That's great. Thank you very much. Thank you.
This is the De Boer family from Vancouver to Mr. Skep.
At the first formal dinner at sea, all passengers are greeted by the captain. And after dinner, off to the show. The travel magazine will be right back with our first port of call, Ketchikan, and a tour of the spectacular Mendenhall Glacier by helicopter. Our first landfall is Ketchikan, sometimes called Alaska's first city.
When the Europeans and the missionaries first encountered the North American Indians, they came across these monuments in cedar, you might say, and that was one of their ideas, that the Indians of the area worshipped him, and they weren't at all. You'd find a variety of different totem poles. Probably the first one to come along would be your post depicting a clan. Another one would be your mortuary pole, which they put to the deceased body, and generally it was a high caste type person that received a mortuary pole. And you have a memorial pole, which this one happens to be a memorial pole, and then you have a heraldic pole, which actually tells a story of a legend. They have an opportunity to see various artists in the carving shade here creating a monuments in cedar. And then the park there, it's the largest totem pole park in Alaska, and they are able to hear some of the stories of the poles.
Well, the picture that he was given showed Lincoln only from the knees up. So they never realized how tall Lincoln actually was. That's why Lincoln is so short at the top of that pole.
The third day of the cruise brings us to Alaska's state capital, Juneau.
Good morning, Juneau. This is Radio 63 CKNO at 9:15. It's a lovely day here in the city. The skies are bright and sunny.
It wasn't long ago that Juneau was a frontier town, and fortunes were made and lost by men searching for gold.
Right next to a creek where gold was discovered in Juneau 109 years ago. It's a historic spot. And a few hundred yards from us is the remains of what was the world's largest gold mine. So one of the major tourist attractions in Juneau at that time was the gold mine tour. So these fellows said, well, let's start a little salmon bake in the woods up there. We'll sell them tickets for that, and they can spend the whole evening in town, or a whole evening in the valley, having dinner and then going up to see the mine tour and the play. Well, the winter after they started, an avalanche came down the mountainside and wiped out the buildings and the trains and the tracks and put the gold mine tour out of business. Well, I was working for one of the founders, and he said, you ought to buy that little business. You can make a go of that. $750. So I bought the business for $750. We just want people to come up and feel at home. They pay one price, they have all they want to eat, the first beer is free. For one thing, we're like 3 tours in one. We're the bus ride up here, we stop on the bridge and on the trestle and look at Gold Creek and the old mine buildings, a little bit of gold mining history, and then the meal here, and then a chance to go gold panning or explore the old mine buildings or just walk around in the woods up here.
The highlight of the Juneau stopover is the optional helicopter excursion and a tour of Mendenhall Glacier.
Glacier is the glacier that we're standing on right now, and it's about 1.5 miles across and 10 or 12 miles long, and the point that we're at right here is about 200 feet of ice.
So what are some of the highlights on the glacier for tourists?
Okay, a lot of people like this ice fall. That's one reason why we land right here, so that you can see the ice fall, and that just is a result of the glacier moving over a cliff. And the crevasses, or the big cracks that open, are real interesting to see. And there's a formation called a moulin, which results when meltwater is carving out a big hole in the ice. And some of the moulins can go down, they actually could go down to the very bottom of the glacier, but a lot of them just go part way and then they follow a crevasse. The water will follow a crevasse down to the lake.
We'll be back with more of our Alaskan cruise right after this. One of the most spectacular stops on this cruise is without any doubt Glacier Bay National Park. You see shorelines that were still covered in ice only 200 years ago. The bay itself is teeming with wildlife, so be sure to bring your binoculars. spoke with a naturalist on board the ship. Sharon, is there any wildlife in Glacier Bay National Park?
Yes, there's a tremendous variety of wildlife, including humpback whales and occasionally an orca or killer whale. With any luck, we'll spot these humpback whales actively feeding on krill, which are very small shrimp, only about 1 inch to 1.5 inches in size. They're going to be eating about a ton of food every day. The orca or killer whale that we may see in Glacier Bay, they feed on larger fish like salmon. Their favorite diet up here is salmon. And also where they get their name, killer whales. Occasionally they will feed on other marine mammals like seals, sea lions, porpoise, and even larger whales.
Well, my favorite food around this area is salmon as well, so we're in competition.
Mine too. The orcas up here have excellent taste in what they're eating.
It pays to keep your binoculars and camera ready. The middle of the bay is a good spot for whale watching. And one of the Glacier Bay National Park rangers is always on hand.
The area that we're cruising through right here was covered by, say, 4,500 feet of ice about 200 years ago. So basically 65 miles of ice was calved off into the bay in about 160 or 170 years. And all that time, the ice elevations going down from 4,500 feet to sea level to no ice at all. And all that time, ice flowing out into the bay. Every aspect of world change, Glacier Bay is a focal point of that, I think, on the planet. From earthquakes to seismic waves to weather to tides to animal life to plant life. Glacier Bay is, I think, one of the true say pinnacles of action on the planet right now. It's a large chunk of primeval wilderness that's set aside hopefully for all time, not only for our benefit and our enjoyment, but for the fact that everything here can always exist the way it always has.
Our fifth day finds us in the city of Sitka, a city that was once central to the Russian fur trade in North America.
Well, the group was formed in 1969 in an effort to provide some type of entertainment for tourists and guests coming into the Sitka. Bishop Theodosius, who was the bishop for the Russian Orthodox Church for that time, gave us some assistance, and we began with 4 dances. And that was 1969, and now we have a repertoire of about 35 dances. The costumes and dances are as authentic as we are able to make them. And we do everything possible to make our dances and presentation authentic.
Why are there no men in the group?
Interesting question, oftentimes asked. In reality, we did encourage the men when the group first began, but they were not real interested in putting in any kind of commitment that would take them out of the outdoor realm. It came to a point where we had to decide, will we accept any men into our group? And at that time, we felt, well, we had survived this long without them, we'll continue to do so.
Your last full day is spent at sea, heading back to Vancouver. It's a good time to brush up on your tennis. Or do anything else you like. Or do nothing at all. The MS New Amsterdam is one of the most luxurious passenger vessels afloat, and everything is geared to make your vacation work.
You can compare the job of a captain to a general manager. Now, as a general manager, I have 3 managers, being the hotel manager in charge of the hotel department, the chief engineer in charge of the technical department, and the chief officer in charge of maintenance and navigation and safety.
Captain, how complicated is it really to navigate the Inside Passage?
Sailing the Inside Passage is not really complicated, although due to currents and narrow passages, my presence on the bridge is very often required.
New Amsterdam, anchor chart. Yes, we're just coming up to the bridge now, and those 2 ships are at Van Wars. Are there any other traffic in the harbor? Over.
The glaciers are definitely the highlight. When we went up to the glaciers, they were still, nothing was moving. Then all of a sudden we heard these noises and the glaciers started breaking away.
Spectacular. Being inside so close, it was great.
Well, I enjoyed it, and I hope you did too. I'm Jake de Boer, and that's it for this edition of the Travel Magazine. Be sure to join us again.